On the night of December 29, 2019, a private jet departed Osaka, Japan. On the manifest, it was carrying audio equipment. It wasn't. Inside one of the equipment cases, hidden, folded, barely breathing, was Carlos Ghosn, one of the most powerful CEOs in automotive history. A man who had appeared on magazine covers. A man who had a manga comic book written about him. A man who had saved an entire Japanese car company from the edge of collapse. He was now hiding in a box, fleeing a country, running from a trial he believed he would never win. This is his story, and it is unlike anything we have ever covered on this channel. To understand Carlos Ghosn, you need to understand what he walked into. 1999, Nissan was dying. The company was $20 billion in debt. It had not turned a profit in 7 of the last 8 years. Industry analysts were predicting its collapse. Then Renault, the French automaker, purchased a 36% stake in Nissan and sent in Carlos Ghosn to fix it. Ghosn was Brazilian-born, Lebanese heritage, French education. He spoke 4 languages. He had already earned a reputation at Renault as a ruthless but brilliant cost cutter. His nickname was Le Cost Killer. He arrived in Japan in 1999 and immediately did what nobody expected. He listened. He spent his first months meeting workers on the factory floor, understanding the culture, learning what was broken from the inside. Then he cut. He closed 5 factories. He eliminated 21,000 jobs. He ended decades of supplier relationships that were costing Nissan billions. It was brutal, but it worked. By 2001, Nissan was profitable again. By 2002, it was the most profitable car company in the world. Japan was stunned. A foreigner had come in, understood their culture better than expected, and saved one of their most iconic companies. Ghosn became a celebrity. A manga comic book called The True Story of Carlos Ghosn became a bestseller in Japan. He was given an action figure. He appeared on magazine covers worldwide. In 2016, he became CEO of both Nissan and Renault simultaneously. One man, 2 of the world's largest car companies. Nobody had ever done it before. He was untouchable, or so he believed. Here is where the story gets complicated. Because Carlos Ghosn was not just a victim, he was also a man who had started to believe his own legend. By the mid-2010s, Ghosn's lifestyle had become extraordinary. Company-funded apartments in Paris, Rio de Janeiro, Amsterdam, Beirut, and Tokyo. A wedding party at the Palace of Versailles, partially funded by Nissan. Tens of millions in salary and deferred compensation that Nissan's board had not fully disclosed to shareholders. Japanese corporate governance is strict. Executive compensation must be reported publicly. Ghosn's team had allegedly been hiding portions of his pay for years, structuring it in ways that kept it off official filings. This was the opening his enemies needed. And Ghosn had enemies inside Nissan. Senior executives who feared that Ghosn was pushing toward a full merger between Nissan and Renault. A merger that would mean French control over a Japanese institution. They started building a case. Quietly, internally, they brought their findings to Nissan's own lawyers, then to Japanese prosecutors. Ghosn had no idea it was coming. On November 19, 2018, he boarded his private jet in Beirut and flew to Tokyo for routine business meetings. Japanese prosecutors were waiting on the tarmac. He was arrested before he left the plane. No warning, no negotiation, straight into detention. In Japan, prosecutors have an extraordinary amount of power. They can hold a suspect for up to 23 days without formal charges, then rearrest them, then hold them again. Ghosn spent 130 days in detention before he was released on bail, confined to a small apartment. Passport confiscated. Trial date uncertain. That is when he started planning. December 29, 2019. Ghosn was under strict bail conditions in Tokyo. He was allowed to move around the city, but he could not leave Japan. That night, 2 American former Special Operations soldiers arrived in Osaka. Michael Taylor and his son Peter. They had been hired to get Ghosn out. The plan was audacious, almost unbelievable. Ghosn would travel from Tokyo to Osaka under the pretense of a holiday visit. In Osaka, a private jet was waiting. Along with it, a team carrying large black audio equipment cases, the kind used by touring musicians, the kind that never get thoroughly checked at customs. Ghosn was placed inside one of the cases. Holes had been drilled to allow airflow. He folded himself into it. The cases were loaded onto the jet as cargo. The jet's manifest listed audio equipment. Japanese customs checked the passengers. They did not check the cargo cases. The jet departed. Flew first to Istanbul, then on to Beirut, Lebanon. Ghosn climbed out. He held a press conference the next day. He told the world he had escaped. What he called a conspiracy, orchestrated by Nissan executives, who feared losing their power. Japan was furious. Turkey arrested the jet's pilots. The United States arrested Michael Taylor and his son. Both were eventually extradited to Japan. Both served prison sentences. Ghosn remains in Beirut to this day. Lebanon has no extradition treaty with Japan. He cannot leave without risking arrest. He has given dozens of interviews. He maintains his innocence. Japan maintains he stole millions. And the truth, as with everything in this story, sits somewhere complicated in between. Here is what nobody talks about. The men who helped him escape, they went to prison. The Nissan executives who built the case against him, still running the company. Ghosn saved Nissan from bankruptcy. Nissan destroyed Ghosn's life. And the question nobody has cleanly answered. Did he steal from the company he saved? Or did the company he saved steal everything from him? Stay with me. Carlos Ghosn lives in Beirut today. He has a comfortable life. He gives interviews, writes, speaks publicly, but he cannot travel freely. Most Western countries would arrest him on behalf of Japan the moment he arrived. He is a man who saved two of the world's largest car companies, living in a country he cannot leave. Michael Taylor and his son Peter were extradited to Japan in 2021. Both pleaded guilty. Both served prison sentences in Japan. The men who risked everything to free Ghosn paid a price Ghosn himself has not. Nissan, the company Ghosn saved, has never fully recovered. After his arrest, the alliance between Nissan, Renault, and Mitsubishi came under enormous strain. Sales declined. Leadership was unstable. The company that Ghosn had transformed into the most profitable car company in the world spent years trying to find its footing again. The Nissan executives who orchestrated his arrest, they kept their positions. They kept their salaries. No criminal charges were ever filed against them for their role in the internal investigation. And the Japanese prosecutors who held Ghosn for 130 days without trial. Japan's conviction rate in criminal trials sits at over 99%, which means that if Ghosn had stayed and gone to trial, he almost certainly would have been convicted, regardless of the evidence. Whether that means the system is just, or whether it means Ghosn was right to run, is a question Japan has never had to answer, because he was already gone. One question before we finish. Drop your answer in the comments. Was Carlos Ghosn a criminal who got away? Or was he a man the system was never going to let win? One word: guilty or setup. I read every single one. And if you know something about this case that most people don't, tell me, because this story is not as simple as it looks. Here is what Ghosn's story actually teaches us. Power is never really yours. It is borrowed. Ghosn borrowed power from Nissan. Nissan borrowed Ghosn's genius to survive. The moment one side decided the arrangement was over, it was over. No amount of past achievement protected him. No amount of magazine covers. No amount of comic books or action figures. The moment the people around him decided he was more useful as a villain than as a leader, they made him one. That is the coldest truth. In every case we cover on this channel, loyalty in business is always conditional. Always. If this story made you think, subscribe, because the next case we're covering involves a man who didn't just lose his company. He lost his country, billions stolen, an entire nation betrayed, and he did it all